The black lightning and blood light tore through the air, carrying an unparalleled, violent fluctuation, like two meteors colliding fiercely at the center of the platform. Boom! At the moment of impact, it seemed as though even the earth itself trembled violently for a moment. The ground collapsed directly, and the black lightning and crimson blood waves surged wildly at the center, eroding and trying to obliterate each other. The ground beneath Mu Chen and Xue Shi's feet turned into dust layer by layer. The hard rocks beneath them were like tofu, deeply pierced by their steps. Their lightning-wreathed fists and the blood-soaked fist prints clashed in midair. The terrifying fluctuations radiating from their fists distorted the surrounding space. Xue Shi's expression darkened with coldness. His powerful punch, which he thought was certain to land, had been resisted by Mu Chen's physical body. Moreover, during the collision, the black lightning surrounding Mu Chen's fist had actually dispersed some of the blood energy surrounding Xue Shi's attack. The black lightning contained a terrifying power. Die! Xue Shi roared, and waves of blood energy surged from his body. His entire arm seemed to be made of coagulated blood, glowing a bright, eye-searing crimson, emanating a thick, blood-curdling scent. In Mu Chen's black eyes, it seemed as though black lightning flashed through them. A destructive wave of energy rippled out, and his upper body almost exploded apart. As his clothes were torn, a black lightning mark appeared on his chest. At that moment, the black lightning mark flickered, glowing with flashes of lightning that grew brighter by the second. Thunder God Body, 1 Mark Thunder Body. After more than a month of training, coupled with the assistance of the Thunder God Lotus, Mu Chen's Thunder God Body had finally reached the 1 Mark stage. As the lightning mark brightened, Mu Chen's body seemed to grow stronger, his entire form surrounded by black lightning, resembling a thunder god descending. Boom! The thunder roared, and lightning surged in Mu Chen's eyes. He threw a punch. Get lost! The roar, accompanied by a thunderous crash, echoed through the air. Mu Chen's fist, carrying rolling black thunder, struck Xue Shi's blood-covered fist with unstoppable momentum. At the moment of impact, Xue Shi's face changed drastically, a look of shock spreading across his face. He could feel a terrifying force pouring in, like a mountain flood rushing at him. Under the weight of this overwhelming power, his vast blood-light, spiritual energy quickly retreated. Not good. Xue Shi's heart sank as he lost his voice. Without time to wonder why Mu Chen's sudden attack had become so fearsome, he tried to retreat. But Mu Chen, equally experienced in battle, would never give him such an opportunity. Having waited so long, Mu Chen's plan was to unleash his Thunder God Body and gather his strongest force to crush his opponent in one blow. Boom! The moment Xue Shi attempted to retreat, Mu Chen unleashed his full power. Boom! Everyone in the stands could see the black lightning suddenly expand at an astonishing speed, while the blood-light spiritual energy was completely suppressed. With one punch, the black thunder surged. Crack! The blood armor covering Xue Shi's fist was shattered in an instant, and the vicious blood spikes also burst apart under the black lightning's impact. The black lightning surged like a furious dragon of destruction, tearing through the air with unstoppable force. Boom! Xue Shi's entire arm was shattered, a mouthful of blood gushing out. His body was sent flying like a rock struck by a powerful blow, leaving a deep trail hundreds of feet long on the ground. The thunderous sound in the arena quickly died down. The black lightning and blood light gradually faded, but the entire Beiming Plaza fell into a deathly silence. Everyone stared, dumbfounded, at the scene before them, their eyes filled with shock. There, Mu Chen still maintained the posture of throwing a punch, the ground before him torn open into a fissure hundreds of feet long, with a ruined landscape at its end. He had actually sent Xue Shi flying with a single punch. Not only were the Taiding Spiritual Academy people stunned, even the North Song Spiritual Academy students, who had always had faith in Mu Chen, stood with their mouths agape. This punch, how could it be this powerful? Su Xian and the others were equally shaken. Mu Chen's punch earlier had definitely been strong enough to seriously injure someone at the early heaven-reaching stage. This guy's strength has improved again. Zhao Qingshan, the crane demon, and the others who had previous conflicts with Mu Chen all turned pale. Fear flickered in their eyes as they looked at him. Mu Chen was stronger now compared to just a month ago. Unconsciously, the once newcomer had begun to surpass them gradually, leaving them far behind. Amidst the silence that filled the arena, all eyes shifted to another area. The ground there had collapsed, and in the giant crater, a figure staggered to its feet, looking disheveled. It was Xue Shi. At this moment, he was covered in blood, his right arm hanging uselessly by his side, as if his bones had been shattered by Mu Chen's earlier punch. Most of his blood god armor had shattered, now looking dim, as if it might dissolve at any moment. Clearly, Mu Chen's terrifying strike had left him severely wounded. How is this possible? Xue Shi stared at his limp right arm in disbelief. His blood god armor had actually been destroyed by Mu Chen. This armor was strong enough to withstand a fierce attack from an opponent at the mid-heaven reaching stage. How could Mu Chen, who was only at the late heaven transformation stage, break his blood god armor? You've lost. Mu Chen's gaze was cold as he looked at Xue Shi. The latter had already fallen outside the arena. According to the rules, he had lost the match. Hearing Mu Chen's words, Xue Shi's face twisted with rage. Anger surged in his eyes. He was a member of the prestigious Blood God clan's royal family. How could he lose to some nameless young man? I'll kill you, bastard. Xue Shi's hand clenched tightly, and a long spear, seemingly made of coagulated blood, appeared in his grasp. He charged forward once again, a cold gleam in his eyes, aiming directly at Mu Chen's throat. Whoosh! The crowd surrounding the arena gasped when they saw Xue Shi, who had already lost his qualification to fight, disregarding the rules and attacking again. Their anger erupted as they began to shout curses at him. Mu Chen's gaze remained indifferent as he watched Xue Shi rush at him. With the blood god armor shattered, Xue Shi's speed had slowed. Coupled with the heavy injuries from earlier, he no longer posed a threat. Swish! Mu Chen moved slightly, and Xue Shi's pupils suddenly contracted as Mu Chen's figure closed in beside him. I warned you, if you hurt her, you'll pay the price. Since you broke the rules first, don't blame me. Up close, a razor-sharp coldness appeared on Mu Chen's handsome face, and his lips curled into a chilling smile. Clearly, he had murderous intent toward the one who had injured Luo Li in such a despicable way. And as for those not from the Northern Desolation Spiritual Academy, he saw no reason to show mercy. Sensing the deep murderous intent in Mu Chen's words, Xue Shi abruptly snapped back to reality. A look of fear crossed his eyes. Mu Chen had been waiting for him to break the rules. Once he broke the rules, Mu Chen would be free to act without restraint. Even if he killed him, Mu Chen would have a valid excuse. This bastard! A chill surged within Xue Shi, but before he could curse, he saw Mu Chen's palm, crackling with black lightning, slam toward his chest. The attack was ruthless beyond measure. Stop! Just as Mu Chen's palm was about to strike Xue Shi's chest, a thunderous shout suddenly rang out from the sky. Mu Chen immediately felt an overwhelming pressure sweep over him, making his body sluggish. Heh, Headmaster Fei, you're breaking the rules by interfering in a student match. However, just as the oppressive aura enveloped Mu Chen, a calm and gentle voice followed, dispelling the pressure that had been weighing on him. Mu Chen's body regained its freedom. A glint of cold light flashed in his eyes as he quickly pressed his palm into Xue Shi's chest. The thunder roared, and his long finger turned dark and deep, piercing forward silently. Having landed the hit, a sense of danger suddenly rose in Mu Chen's heart. He immediately retreated, and as he did, a large, fat figure appeared next to Xue Shi and grabbed him in one motion. The one who made the move was none other than Fei Qingsong from Tai Ding Spiritual Academy. He gazed at Xue Shi, whose breath was weak, his chest sunken and on the brink of death, and his face instantly changed. His eyes locked onto Mu Chen with a fierce glare. The spiritual energy in the surroundings seemed to condense into a tangible force, pressing towards Mu Chen, trying to crush him. Mu Chen's body felt as though it were trapped in a swamp, unable to move. His expression shifted drastically. This force was simply beyond his ability to resist. However, Just as the spiritual energy from the heavens and earth pressed down on Mu Chen, a towering figure appeared in front of him. With a sweep of his sleeve, the overwhelming pressure instantly dissipated into thin air. The headmaster of Taicang Academy appeared before Mu Chen, his expression calm as he looked at Fei Qingsong. His voice, as deep as thunder, echoed across the heavens and earth, causing the surrounding spiritual energy to surge in agitation. Fei Academy head, while my Northern Song Spiritual Academy has treated you with respect, do you truly think my academy is so easily bullied? In the following days, Mu Chen almost trained with Elder Ling Xi every day in that grueling, devilish manner. By the end of each day, he returned covered in injuries. His appearance startled Luo Li, and after learning the whole story, she could only helplessly shake her head. Elder Ling Xi truly was relentless. Though the intense training came at a heavy cost, there was no denying its effectiveness. In just 10 short days, Mu Chen made significant progress. On the first day, simply breaking through 3 level 4 spirit arrays had left him exhausted, and he was a mess. But by the 10th day, he had managed to increase that number to an astonishing 20. Activating 20 level 4 spirit arrays simultaneously was so powerful that even a heaven-reaching stage powerhouse would feel a chill. Fortunately, these arrays weren't intended for killing, so they couldn't be compared to actual combat. With his Thunder God body and growing familiarity, Mu Chen was able to barely get through, though the cost was steep. Every time he passed, he couldn't move the next day and had to rest. Through these daily battles with the arrays, Mu Chen could feel the mystical sensation coming more and more frequently, which filled him with immense joy. Though this mystical feeling didn't necessarily mean he had reached the hard-eye state, it did tell him he was getting closer. If this continued, he would eventually see through the mysterious fog and truly grasp the hard-eye state. Boom! Deep in the bamboo forest, waves of spiritual light surged, and spirit arrays covered the area, layer upon layer, densely packed. As they activated, torrents of spiritual energy surged through the air with a terrifying momentum. At the center of these overlapping arrays, countless beams of light howled, and a figure flashed through them like lightning, black thunder flashing on his body, deflecting some of the unavoidable spiritual energy beams. Bang! Bang! As he dodged, the figure struck out rapidly. Waves of powerful fist winds surged, landing on the stacked spirit arrays. Each time he struck, a layer of the arrays trembled, letting out a faint cracking sound before collapsing, turning into countless light particles that scattered into the air. Outside the bamboo forest, Xun'er watched in awe. In less than half a month, Mu Chen had already shed the clumsy state he was in at the beginning. It was clear that he had grasped some patterns, and even Xun'er could see that Mu Chen's ability to locate the array core had become increasingly sharp. Although Elder Ling Xi hadn't hidden the array core in any special way, finding it under such conditions was still an incredibly difficult task. Not even a level 4 spirit array master could do it easily, let alone someone at the level 5 rank. Yet, Mu Chen had progressed this much in such a short time, which was already impressive. Bang! 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 As Xun'er marveled, in the depths of the bamboo forest, with every punch that tore through the air, the layers of spirit arrays were destroyed one by one, and the sky was filled with dazzling light particles. Boom! When the final spirit array shattered, a figure shot out rapidly, landing next to Xun'er. Big brother Mu Chen here? Xun'er thoughtfully handed over a piece of clothing. The little girl wasn't shy anymore. After all, she had seen so much over the past few days, and she was used to it now. Mu Chen put on the clothing, wiping off some of the blood stains from his body. Though his body still ached, he had already grown accustomed to it over these days. He wasn't as weak as on the first day. At least now, he wouldn't collapse from exhaustion. Big brother Mu Chen, how's your progress with the hard-eye state? Xun'er asked curiously. Still a bit off, Mu Chen smiled helplessly. Earlier, he had once again sensed that mysterious feeling, but for some reason, it always felt like something was missing. It was like a bird trapped in its shell, trying to break out but finding the shell too hard to crack. It felt twisted. However, he wasn't too greedy. Progress over the past few days was already good enough. While he was confident in his talent, The heart-eye state was a very profound skill, not something that could be easily mastered. Big brother Mu Chen, you need to keep going. Sister Ling, she said yesterday that your progress is too slow. If she gets impatient, she might just kick you out, Xun'er added. Mu Chen was speechless. After 10 or so days of contact, he had come to understand Ling Xi a bit. This woman certainly had a strong personality and would do anything. Although Mu Chen hadn't dared offend her, if one day she was in a bad mood, it was entirely possible she might drive him away for no reason. Xun'er, do you know how old she really is? Mu Chen glanced around surreptitiously and asked quietly. He was very curious about this. In the Northern Desolation Spiritual Academy, it was his first time seeing such a young elder. She didn't seem much older than him, but he couldn't be sure. After all, some powerful cultivators could alter their appearance. Like Elder Zhu Tian, he appeared youthful, but Mu Chen could immediately tell that it was just a disguise. The feeling of being weathered and ancient could not be hidden. But Mu Chen couldn't sense that same feeling from Ling Xi. Though she was cold, there was no trace of that oldness. She never told me her age, but she just asked me to call her sister. I think she's probably not very old. Xun'er lowered her voice, her big eyes filled with excitement. It seemed like she was just as keen on gossip as Mu Chen. Mu Chen nodded. If she were truly old, she probably wouldn't have allowed Xun'er to call her sister. But if she was young, it was a bit scary. How old could she be to possess such terrifying power? She could probably crush people like Xianxing. Actually, I think even Sister Ling Xi herself isn't quite sure how old she is. She seems to have forgotten a lot of things. Xun'er tilted her head, looking a bit confused. Mu Chen froze. Forgotten? He furrowed his brows. Ling Xi gave off such a mysterious aura, and he had no idea what her background was. The world was indeed full of strange and unusual things. He was about to ask more when he saw the familiar white dress appear in the distance. He immediately fell silent, while Xun'er stuck out her little tongue and pretended to wipe the blood off Mu Chen's body. Ling Xi walked over slowly. Her cool gaze briefly scanned Mu Chen, and she said, "It seems like you still have some strength left today." Her voice carried a hint of coldness. Mu Chen gave a dry smile. "Finished with your training and still not heading back? What are you doing here?" Ling Xi issued a direct order. "Starting tomorrow, the number of spirit arrays will increase to 30. In 5 days, you will enter the spirit array cottage. If you still can't open your heart eye by then, you'll have to figure it out on your own. I won't teach such a slow learner anymore." Mu Chen smiled without showing any frustration. He was quite curious about the spirit array cottage. According to Xun'er, it seemed like a rather scary place, and from Ling Xi's words, it seemed to have some effect on opening the heart eye. As he thought, he rubbed Xun'er's little head and took his leave. Once Mu Chen left, Ling Xi shot a glare at Xun'er and said, "If you gossip about me again, see how I deal with you." "Xun'er won't do it again." Xun'er quickly shook her head. Ling Xi was truly frightening, and she had definitely overheard them. "Oh," Xun'er nodded repeatedly, holding a broom taller than herself as she went to clean up the mess Mu Chen had made in the bamboo forest. Ling Xi watched Xun'er's small figure, a faint smile appearing at the corner of her lips. Then, as if recalling something, her gaze became somewhat distant. She sighed softly, turned, and went back to the bamboo house. She walked to the deepest part, where there was a small bamboo hut with its door tightly shut. She pushed open the door, and inside the hut, the air was as clean as a needle, remarkably simple. There was a cushion on the floor, and in front of it, on the wall, hung a painting. The painting seemed to depict a black tower, with the faint outline of a woman sitting cross-legged on top. The figure was blurry, but it gave off a serene, peaceful vibe. Ling Xi knelt down on the cushion, staring blankly at the painting. Her beautiful eyes reflected confusion as she seemed to be trying to recall something. However, in the end, she sighed in frustration, her delicate hand covering her forehead. Her long black hair cascaded to the floor, making her slender figure appear even more fragile and lonely. This was a desolate wilderness. Atop a lonely peak stood a young man in black robes, his hands behind his back. A black sword was slung across his back, and on his forehead, a black dragon mark coiled. A chilling aura surged from it, creating a terrifying sensation that sent a shiver down the spine. The familiar figure was none other than the devil dragon child. He tilted his head slightly, gazing toward the distant north, a cruel, cold smile spreading across his lips. Chasing for so long. You really have perseverance. But this time, I'm afraid you won't make it out. This is a feast I've carefully prepared for you. Heh. If I kill both the top two of the heavenly ranking from the Northern Song Spiritual Academy, I wonder if I'll surpass them on the bounty list? I really can't wait. His cruel, quiet laughter echoed across the peak, and as it did, the figure in black slowly disappeared into thin air. Buzz. The overwhelming and violent spiritual energy surged through the starry sky, and the enormous spiritual array, seemingly made of stars, immediately activated. The starlight gathered, sending out tremors that resonated through the air. Mu Chen's expression grew serious. He couldn't afford to be careless. With such a high-level spiritual array, any mistake, and he might truly never leave this array room today. His sharp eyes scanned the intricate array, trying to discern any patterns or tracks. But soon, he gave up. The spiritual array here was no longer as simple as before. It was infused with a deadly intent. Moreover, it was clearly under control. It was not Ling Xi who was manipulating it, but the spiritual array room itself. At this level, the spiritual artifact had gained a basic consciousness and could unleash its power without Ling Xi's control. Thus, it would be impossible for Mu Chen to simply locate the heart of the array and easily break it, as he had done before. Boom! The spiritual array surged violently. A beam of starlight condensed and transformed into a massive meteor, tearing through the sky at an astonishing speed, instantly covering 100 zhang radius around Mu Chen. The pressure from the impact made Mu Chen's robes whip in the air. His expression tightened, and he swiftly retreated, simultaneously changing his hand seals. The overwhelming spiritual energy surged, and a starry sky appeared behind him. The white tiger stepped through the void. Roar! The white tiger roared, stepping across the starry sky, and collided violently with the incoming meteor. Boom! At the moment of impact, it felt as though the entire starry sky was trembling. The violent spiritual energy surged outward, shattering the white tiger's starlight form. Mu Chen was struck by the backlash, his figure retreating uncontrollably, a sweet taste rising in his throat. But he forced it down, his gaze growing more focused. This spiritual array was indeed not easy to handle. Boom, boom, boom. As the assault began, the spiritual array erupted in full force. The array moved, shifting through thousands of radiant lights. Beams of starlight condensed again, and meteors began to take shape. Mu Chen furrowed his brow. This spiritual array had to be broken quickly. Otherwise, he might be slowly worn out and die. If I can't see through you, I'll just break you forcefully. Cold light flickered in Mu Chen's eyes. In his previous training, Ling Xi had forbidden him from breaking the array violently. So Mu Chen had no choice but to proceed cautiously. The spirit array before him, once fully activated, would unleash a power comparable to someone at the mid-stage of the heaven-reaching realm. It might even surpass the power of Xue Shi. Therefore, Mu Chen had to break it as quickly as possible. With a clear plan in mind, Mu Chen hesitated no longer. Black flame's spiritual energy surged from him, once again transforming into a starry sky behind him. However, this time, the starry sky was vast and boundless. Within it, 3 enormous beast shadows quickly took shape. 4 deities constellation cannon, white tiger divine seal, black tortoise divine seal, vermilion bird divine seal. This time, Mu Chen didn't hold back. The 3 divine seals were unleashed simultaneously. The overwhelming spiritual energy spread like a tidal wave, and the 3 beast shadows let out a deafening roar, shaking the heavens with terrifying might. Whoosh! Whoosh! Inside the spirit array, meteors began to form and then rained down, relentlessly striking at Mu Chen. His expression grew cold. Clenching his fists, he immediately launched a punch. Roar! The 3 massive beast shadows in the starry sky let out a furious roar, carrying with them an explosive wave of spiritual energy, like three ancient, ferocious beasts. They collided violently with the meteors falling from the sky. Boom, boom, boom. Each meteor shattered under the impact of the three beast shadows. The beast shadows charged forward like a raging storm, finally crashing into the massive spirit array. The tremendous spiritual energy wreaked havoc, and the array began to tremble violently before shattering apart. A shower of light particles rained down. Mu Chen, watching the array collapse, let out a sigh of relief. At last, he had destroyed the array. However, his relief lasted only a few seconds before his expression shifted. Because, at the spot where the array had shattered, he saw a new surge of spiritual energy gathering. As the light rippled, another spirit array began to form. Though different from the previous one, its energy fluctuations were still formidable. Furthermore, Mu Chen could see that a larger, more powerful array seemed to be forming on the outer perimeter. Hiss! This sight made Mu Chen gasp in shock, his face paling. The spirit formation cottage could actually set up arrays on its own. This wasn't just any spiritual artifact. It was like a spirit array master with profound experience in array formations. And not just any spirit array master, but one possibly at a level higher than his, perhaps even a master-level array maker. What a terrifying artifact, Mu Chen thought, his heart trembling. The spirit formation cottage was too powerful. Whoever possessed it essentially had an obedient spirit array master at their disposal, one who would release the most powerful forces without resistance, simply following orders. No wonder Xun'er had said it could trap a supreme being. Mu Chen had been skeptical before, but now, he had no doubt. It seems like this approach won't work. Mu Chen's expression grew serious. According to Ling Xi, the spirit formation cottage had only activated the first layer, but that was already more than enough to deal with him. If he tried to force his way out, he would clearly be no match for it. Since brute force wouldn't work, his only option was to find a loophole. Furrowing his brow, Mu Chen took a deep breath. It seemed the only way for him to escape this spirit formation cottage was to activate his hard eye, and he wouldn't have much time. If he couldn't do it within the limited time, he would have no way out. There's no way out, Mu Chen muttered to himself. Yet there was no fear in his eyes. Instead, his gaze grew sharp and determined as he fixed his eyes on the massive array in operation. He slowly closed his eyes again, returning to the heart array state, seeking the hidden mystery within. Boom, boom. As Mu Chen closed his eyes, the spirit array activated. Waves of spiritual energy surged, roaring like dragons as they surged toward Mu Chen, crushing everything in their path. At this moment, Mu Chen unleashed the dragon sword art to its peak, evading the torrents of energy. For the attacks he couldn't avoid, he could only endure them head-on. In less than half a minute, blood began to seep from his body, already covered in black lightning, and he looked increasingly miserable. But Mu Chen didn't pay attention to the growing injuries. His state of mind was as deep and still as an endless abyss, unaffected by the external world. Outside the spirit formation cottage, Xun'er's pale little face stared at the light curtain in front of her. Inside it, terrifying torrents of spiritual energy howled, and Mu Chen's figure appeared minuscule amidst the chaos. Every time an attack struck his body, he would tremble violently. Blood sprayed out, making him look like a blood-soaked figure. Besides Xun'er, Ling Xi also fixed her gaze on the light curtain, though her expression remained much calmer. She simply watched the young figure, struggling amidst the overwhelming torrents, as if nothing in the world could stir her emotions too much. Boom! Mu Chen's body was struck by a torrent of spiritual energy. A savage wound tore open across his chest, deep enough to see his bones, with blood gushing out. Black lightning flickered madly, attempting to offset the damage. The spiritual energy enveloping Mu Chen's body had grown weak, much like his life force at this moment. Mu Chen's mind also sensed the gradual weakening, a faint hint of death creeping in. That profound sensation had already appeared, but he still couldn't fully open his hard eye. Almost there. In his mind, it was as if a furious roar was echoing. Just that little bit. The hard eye deep within his soul still couldn't open. Not enough. The threat of death still wasn't enough. Mu Chen's eyes snapped open, black pupils flickering with madness. Though his body was heavily wounded, it still wasn't enough. With gritted teeth, he shot forward, charging straight into a sweeping torrent of spiritual energy. Outside the spirit formation cottage, seeing his frenzied action, Xun'er let out a shrill scream in fear. Ling Xi's expression remained serene, but her beautiful eyes became even more focused. Boom! The torrent of spiritual energy struck Mu Chen's body, and blood spurted out like a fountain. His body was sent flying back, and it seemed as if he had collapsed somewhat. The spiritual energy swirling around him began to dim bit by bit. It was as though he was about to dissipate. Mu Chen's consciousness also began to fade into darkness, the overwhelming sensation of death surging up. Death loomed over him, and his mind seemed to sink into endless blackness. As that darkness stretched to its limit, something seemed to tremble within it. Eventually, a newborn eye appeared, slowly opening in the midst of the darkness. Just as Mu Chen's mind descended into that deathly blackness, the spirit formation cottage didn't cease its attack. Torrents of spiritual energy howled, relentlessly bombarding the figure of Mu Chen floating in midair. Ling Xi, save him. Xun'er quickly grabbed Ling Xi's pale wrist, urgently shouting. Ling Xi sighed softly, raising her jade hand slightly. However, just as she was about to make a move, within the light curtain, Mu Chen's body suddenly erupted with a towering black light. The light enveloped him, rapidly condensing into a massive black tower, protecting him within. Boom! Boom! The torrents of spiritual energy slammed into the black tower, causing brilliant flashes of light to explode. Huh! Xun'er was momentarily stunned by the sight, then let out a sigh of relief. So Mu Chen had made preparations after all. Ling Xi. Xun'er looked up at Ling Xi, only to be surprised to see the latter staring dazedly at the black tower surrounding Mu Chen within the light curtain. Her delicate form was slightly trembling, an expression on her face that Xun'er had never seen before. Boom! Inside the spirit formation cottage, the enormous black tower appeared, shielding Mu Chen while blocking all the terrifying torrents of spiritual energy. The violent spiritual energy impacted the black tower surface, causing the tower to hum and tremble. Boom, boom, boom. After one wave of attacks was blocked, the formation inside the spirit formation cottage shifted. A massive formation on the outermost edge slowly began to activate. A surge of spiritual energy, so powerful it could make even heaven-reaching experts change color, rippled outward. Sensing the might of the black tower, the spirit formation cottage attempted to channel more power to erase it. The black tower, aware of the danger, shuddered slightly, and a black aura spread out, forming a defensive barrier to forcefully block the attack. The massive spirit array quickly took shape, and as it activated, a giant light arc, resembling a dragon, roared and surged outward. Wherever it passed, the space itself seemed to twist and distort. Beneath the dragon-like light arc, even the black tower seemed tiny in comparison. Just as the enormous dragon light arc swept toward the black tower, ready to strike, Mu Chen inside the tower suddenly opened his eyes wide. His eyes now shone with a crystal-clear transparency, as if they could pierce through everything in the world. Extremely mysterious and astonishing. His gaze pierced through the black tower, locking onto the oncoming dragon light arc. The power contained within it was far beyond what an ordinary heaven-reaching stage expert could withstand. If it were to strike the black tower, it might even shatter the tower into pieces. Mu Chen's transparent eyes glowed with intensity. He suddenly stood up, and as he did, the massive black tower shrank rapidly, finally returning to his body. Thus, Mu Chen stood exposed beneath the dragon light arc. His transparent eyes grew even clearer as he focused on the dragon light arc, which seemed to have turned into an ocean of spiritual energy, with countless streams of spiritual power swirling and converging. Mu Chen's gaze flickered wildly, and then his spiritual energy erupted with no restraint. His body transformed into a streak of light and collided head-on with the dragon-like light arc. Upon seeing this, Xun'er's face turned pale with fright. She recognized that this spirit array was the most powerful one in the first layer of the spirit formation cottage. Even a heaven-reaching stage expert would be reduced to ashes if struck by it, leaving no trace behind. "Senior Ling Xi, please save him," Xun'er urgently cried out, shaking Ling Xi's jade-like hand. Ling Xi, who had been in a daze, was jolted back to reality by Xun'er's frantic shaking. Her heart trembled as she quickly turned her gaze toward the light barrier, just in time to see Chen charging toward the dragon light arc. Her beautiful face instantly turned pale with fear. Raising her jade hand, a light arc shot toward the spirit formation cottage as she shouted, "Stop!" With her command, the overwhelming spiritual light inside the spirit formation cottage vanished. The massive array that had been in operation began to dissipate, bit by bit. Within the light barrier, the vast spiritual energy fluctuations dissipated, leaving the place eerily empty. Chen's figure vanished, as if he had been turned to ash. Xun'er stared blankly at the empty light barrier, her tiny body trembling uncontrollably. Ling Xi, standing beside her, appeared dazed, her heart filled with an indescribable emotion. She realized that she might have made a grave mistake, something very important to her. The black tower that had been protecting Chen earlier, wasn't it the same black tower from the painting? Why did he have it? Though she had lost many memories, she knew that black tower was significant to her as well. She clenched her jade hand tightly, her fingers digging into her palm, but the pain didn't seem to register. She was lost in a daze, as though she had lost her very soul. The two of them, one large and one small, stood before the now ruined spirit formation cottage, silent. A cold breeze swept by, bringing with it a biting chill. Creak. As they stood frozen in place, the dilapidated stone door of the cottage slowly creaked open, and a bloodied figure stumbled out. They looked up in confusion to see Chen, bloodied and pale, standing at the door, looking like a mess. "Brother Chen, you're alive." Xun'er was the first to snap out of her daze, and she cried out in surprise. She immediately dashed toward him, but Chen quickly reached out to stop her. A surge of force struck him, causing a trickle of blood to spill from the corner of his mouth. He could only smile wryly, thinking how unlucky he was this time. "Ah, Brother Chen, I'm so sorry. Are you okay?" Xun'er quickly realized how badly injured he was, and she hurriedly took a step back. Chen weakly waved his hand. Luckily, he had cultivated the thunder god body, or else his body might not have been able to withstand such an ordeal. Swoosh! Ling Xi's graceful figure appeared like a ghost before Chen. Her usually indifferent eyes now shimmered with waves of emotion as they locked onto him. Chen took 2 steps back, his face pale. He was somewhat afraid of Ling Xi. After all, he had nearly died in the spirit formation cottage earlier. If he hadn't opened his hard eye at the last moment, he would have been in serious danger. Ling Xi noticed the pale expression on Chen's face and felt a little awkward. After hesitating for a moment, she extended her cold jade-like hand and grabbed Chen's arm, sending a gentle stream of spiritual energy into his body to heal his injuries. Chen was startled by Ling Xi's actions. He stared at the beautiful girl in white, who looked like snow, with a dazed expression. After nearly a month of interaction, this was the first time he had seen her not so indifferent when facing him, but it made him feel a bit uncomfortable. Beside them, Xun'er also looked at Ling Xi in surprise. She was much more familiar with Ling Xi and knew that she had a strong sense of cleanliness. Not to mention touching a man's hand, she sometimes didn't even want to speak to them. When Chen had been training here before, he was always chased away as soon as his training ended, never allowed to stay for even a moment longer. Even when Chen was exhausted and passed out, Ling Xi would have Xun'er carry him away immediately. Yet now, Ling Xi was actively healing Chen, which was truly unbelievable. The atmosphere between the three of them became strangely quiet. Chen could only awkwardly endure this rare display of tenderness. After a while, when the intense pain in his body had subsided slightly, he cleared his throat and said, "Elder Ling Xi, that should be enough." Ling Xi heard this and finally released her hand, stepping back a bit. She stared at Chen and asked, "You've opened your heart eye?" Chen nodded and replied, "I opened it at the last moment." A sense of relief and joy appeared on his face as he spoke. His recent cultivation had finally paid off. He had truly unlocked the heart eye state now, which would greatly improve his spiritual formation abilities. Ling Xi nodded slightly, but her gaze remained fixed on him. Her stare made Mu Chen's heart tremble, and he forced a smile, saying, "Thank you for all your help, Elder Ling Xi. My injuries are quite severe today, so I'll go rest for a while." After saying that, he tried to leave, but just as he moved, Ling Xi's graceful figure appeared in front of him. She stared at him intently, her eyes no longer cold and indifferent like before. "I want to ask you something." Ling Xi's voice was a little hurried, but still clear and pleasant. "Xun'er, could you step outside for a moment?" Ling Xi looked over at Xun'er, who was staring at them in confusion. Xun'er nodded in confusion, then her big eyes flickered as she quietly reminded Ling Xi, "Brother Mu Chun already has someone he likes?" After saying that, she quickly slipped away, afraid of angering Ling Xi. Ling Xi was momentarily stunned by her words, and then a blush appeared on her snow-white skin, her embarrassment evident. She clearly understood where Xun'er's thoughts had gone. Mu Chun also felt a bit awkward, but he was self-aware enough to know that he didn't believe Ling Xi could truly have feelings for him. She had been indifferent to him before, and it was unlikely that she even had any positive feelings toward him. "Elder Ling Xi, what do you want to ask?" Mu Chun looked at Ling Xi, who was still staring at him, her bright eyes fixed on him as if unwilling to look away. Ling Xi stared at him for a long time. Then, in a trembling voice, she asked, "I want to know why there's a black tower inside you?" "The Black Tower?" Mu Chun was stunned for a moment before he realized she was referring to the 9-level pagoda. He became a little cautious. The 9-level pagoda had appeared because of his cultivation of the great pagoda art, which had been left to him by his mother. This was clearly related to his mother, who, according to his father, was a remarkable person with an impressive background. Therefore, Mu Chun, ever cautious, didn't want to reveal such information to anyone easily. "It's just a defensive spirit tool. There's nothing special about it," Mu Chun said, his gaze still fixed on Ling Xi, speaking slowly. Ling Xi looked at him, her eyes filled with doubt, making it clear she didn't believe him. Mu Chun didn't care whether she believed him or not. He smiled and said, "Elder Ling Xi, may I leave now?" Ling Xi's expression subtly shifted, and then she gritted her teeth. Mu Chun struggled, but he quickly realized that there was no way to break free from Ling Xi's grasp. Left with no choice, he could only surrender helplessly. He wanted to see what exactly Ling Xi was up to today. In the distance, hidden away, Xun'er watched as Mu Chun was forcefully dragged off by Ling Xi. Her small face was a mix of emotions, her little hands clenched together in distress, and her expression was full of worry. "Oh no, should I tell Sister Luoli?" Creak. The bamboo door swung open, revealing an immaculately clean bamboo house. Ling Xi pulled Mu Chun inside, waved her jade-like hand, and shut the door firmly behind them. Only then did she release her grip on Mu Chun and walk straight over to a meditation cushion, where she knelt down, lifted her delicate face, and gazed at the painting on the wall. Mu Chun rubbed his arm, where her grip had left a faint red mark. As he took in his surroundings, his gaze naturally landed on the painting. The movement of his hand gradually stilled. His expression, too, slowly froze. His eyes locked onto the painting. On the ancient scroll, a black pagoda stood tall. The tower had 9 levels, appearing to reach the heavens themselves. However, Mu Chun barely paid attention to the pagoda. His focus was entirely on the very top, where a solitary figure sat in meditation. The figure was blurred and indistinct, but strands of long hair drifted softly, and an aura of indescribable serenity seemed to radiate from her. Yet, the moment Mu Chun saw that vague silhouette, it was as if he had been struck by lightning. A surge of emotion, impossible to suppress, erupted from the depths of his soul, a longing buried for over a decade. From the furthest reaches of his hazy memories, a gentle figure emerged, leading a small child by the hand, leaving behind a faint, tender smile. That warmth had remained in the deepest part of his heart for over 10 years. Mu Chun's vision blurred with moisture, his body trembling slightly. Then, from the depths of his soul, a hoarse voice, suppressed for more than a decade, rose uncontrollably.